Señor Gran Canciller, Cardenal Ricardo Satti,
Grand Chancellor Cardinal
Hermanos en
Ricardo
Pontifical.
Izati,
Señor Rector,
my brother
Doctor
bishops,
Ignacio Sánchez, distinguidas
President
autoridades
Dr. Ignacio
universitarias,
Sanchez,
queridos profesores,
distinguished university
funcionarios,
authorities,
personal de la
dear
universidad,
professors and administrators,
queridos alumnos.
dear students.
Estoy contento por estar junto a ustedes
I
en
am
esta
happy
casa
to
de
be here with
estudios
you at
que en
this
sus
House of
casi
Studies,
130 años de vida
which in its
ha ofrecido
130
un
years of
servicio
life
inestimable al
has
país.
rendered a priceless service to the country.
Agradezco al señor rector sus palabras de bienvenida.
I thank the President for
En
his
nombre de
words of
todos.
welcome on behalf of us all
También
present.
le agradezco a usted, señor rector, el bien que hace con su sapiencialidad en el gobierno de la universidad y en defender con coraje la
Thanks him
identidad
for
de
the
la
good he
Universidad
does in this
Católica.
university and for thanking him for maintaining and defending its identity.
La historia de esta universidad
The history of this
está
university
entrelazada, en
is
cierto
in
modo,
some
con la
sense
historia de
woven
Chile.
into the history of Chile.
Son miles los hombres y mujeres que formándose aquí
Thousands of men and
han
women
cumplido
who were
tareas
educated here
relevantes
have
para el
made
desarrollo
significant
de la patria.
contributions to the
Quisiera
development of
recordar
the nation.
especialmente la figura de San
I would
Alberto
like
Hurtado,
especially to mention San Alberto Hurtado,
en que se cumplen 100
who began
años
his
desde que
studies
comenzó
here
aquí
a
sus
century
estudios.
ago.
Su vida
His life
se
is a
vuelve
clear testimony to how
un
intelligence,
claro testimonio
academic
de
excellence,
cómo
and
la
professionalism,
inteligencia, la
when joined to
excelencia
faith,
académica
justice, and
y la
charity,
profesionalidad
far
en el
from
quehacer,
weakening, attain a
armonizadas con la
prophetic
fe,
power
la
capable of
justicia y
opening
la caridad,
horizons and
lejos
pointing the
de
way,
disminuirse,
especially for those on the
alcanzan una
margins of
fuerza
society.
que es profecía, capaz de abrir horizontes e iluminar el sendero, especialmente para los descartados de la sociedad. Sobre todo hoy,
Above all today,
en que priva
in which
esta cultura del descarte.
the throwaway culture
En este
which is
sentido,
present today.
In this
quiero retomar
regard,
sus
I would
palabras,
like to
señor
take
rector,
up
cuando
your words,
afirmaba,
dear President,
tenemos
when you
importantes
said
desafíos
we
para
have
nuestra
important
patria
challenges for our
que dicen
country that
relación
have
con
to
la
do with
convivencia
peaceful
nacional
coexistence as a
y
nation
con la capacidad
and the ability
de
to
avanzar en
progress
comunidad.
as a community.
Convivencia nacional. Hablar
To
de
speak of
desafíos
challenges is to acknowledge that situations have reached the point
que han llegado
where they
a un
need to be
punto
rethought.
que exige ser repensadas. Los que hasta
What was
ayer
hitherto
podía
an
ser
element
un
of unity and
factor de
cohesion
unidad y cohesión,
now calls for new
hoy está
responses.
reclamando nuevas respuestas. El
The
ritmo
accelerated
acelerado
pace and a
y
sense
la
of
implantación casi
disorientation
vertiginosa
before new
de algunos
processes and
procesos
changes
y
in our
cambios que se
societies
imponen
call for
en
a
nuestras
serene
sociedades
but urgent
nos
reflection
invitan
that is
de
neither
manera
naive nor
serena,
utopian,
pero sin
much
demora,
less arbitrary.
a una reflexión que no sea ingenua, utópica y menos aún voluntarista. Lo cual
This has nothing to
no
do with
significa
curbing the growth
frenar
of
el
knowledge,
desarrollo del conocimiento,
but rather with making the
sino hacer que
university a
de la
privileged space
universidad
for putting
un
into
espacio
practice the grammar of
privilegiado
dialogue
para
which
practicar
shapes
la
encounter.
gramática del diálogo que forma encuentro. Ya que
For
la
true
verdadera
wisdom
sabiduría
is the fruit
es
of
producto de la
reflection,
reflexión,
dialogue, and generous
del
encounter
diálogo
between
y del
persons.
encuentro generoso entre las personas. La convivencia
Peaceful
nacional
coexistence
es
as a
posible, entre
nation
otras
is
cosas,
possible,
en la medida
not
en
least
que
to the extent that we can
generemos
generate
procesos
educational
educativos
processes
también
that are
transformadores,
also transformative,
inclusivos
inclusive,
y de
and meant to
convivencia.
favor such coexistence.
Educar para la convivencia no es solamente
Educating for peaceful
adjuntar
coexistence
valores
does not mean
a la
simply
labor
attaching
educativa,
values to the work of education,
sino generar
but
una
rather
dinámica
establishing
de
a dynamic of
convivencia
coexistence
dentro del propio
internal to the
sistema
very
educativo.
system of education
No es
itself.
tanto una cuestión de contenidos, sino de enseñar a pensar y a razonar
It is
de
not so
manera
much a question of
integradora,
content, but of teaching
lo
how
que
to
los
think and
clásicos
reason in
solían
an
llamar
integrated
con el
way,
nombre
what
de
was
forma
traditionally called
mentis.
forma mentis.
Y para lograr esto es
To achieve this, it
necesario
is necessary
desarrollar
to develop what might be called an integrating literacy
alfabetización
capable of
integradora
encompassing the
que
processes
sepa
of change now
acompasar los
taking place in our
procesos de
societies.
transformación que se están produciendo en el seno de nuestras sociedades. Tal
This
proceso de
literacy process
alfabetización
requires working
exige
simultaneously
trabajar de
to
manera
integrate the different
simultánea
languages
la
that constitute
integración
us
de
as
los diversos
persons.
lenguajes que nos constituyen como personas. Es
That
decir,
is to say, an education,
educación,
literacy, that it
alfabetización,
integrates and harmonizes
que integre y
intellect,
armonice
the
el
head,
intelecto, los
affections, the
afectos,
heart, and activity,
manos.
the hands.
es decir,
This will offer
la
students
cabeza,
a
el
growth
corazón
that
y
is
las manos.
harmonious, not only at a personal level,
Esto
but
brindará
also
y
at the level of
posibilitará a los
society.
estudiantes crecer no solo en armonioso nivel personal, sino simultáneamente a nivel social. Urge
We urgently
generar
need to create
espacios donde la
spaces where fragmentation is not
no
the
sea
guiding
el esquema
principle,
dominante,
even for thinking.
incluso del
To
pensamiento.
do this, it is
Para
necessary
ello
to
es
teach
necesario
how to reflect
enseñar
on
a
what we are
pensar
feeling and doing,
lo que se siente y se hace. A
to feel
sentir
what we
lo
are
que se
thinking and
piensa
doing,
y se hace. A hacer lo que se
to do what
piensa
we
y
are
se
thinking
siente.
and feeling,
Un dinamismo
an
de
interplay of
capacidades
capacities at the
al
service
servicio de
of
la
the
persona
person
y de la
and
sociedad.
society.
La alfabetización basada en la
Literacy
integración
based on the
de los
integration of
distintos
the
lenguajes
distinct
que nos
languages that
conforman
shape us will
irá
engage students
implicando
in their own
a los
educational
estudiantes
process,
en
a
su
process that
propio
will prepare
proceso
them to face the
educativo,
challenges of the
proceso de
immediate future.
cara a los desafíos que el mundo próximo les va a presentar. El
The
divorcio de
divorce
los
of
saberes y
fields
de los
of learning
lenguajes
from
que el
languages and literacy with regard to
sobre
integrating
cómo
the distinct
integrar
dimensions of
las
life
distintas
bring only
dimensiones de la vida,
fragmentation and social
lo único
breakdown.
que consigue es fragmentación y ruptura social.
In this liquid
sociedad
society, or
líquida
society
o
of
ligera,
lightness,
como
as
la han
various
querido
thinkers have
denominar
termed it,
algunos
those
pensadores,
points of reference
van
that people
desapareciendo
use
los
to
puntos
build
de
themselves
referencia
individually and
desde donde
socially
las
are
personas
disappearing.
pueden constituirse individual y socialmente.
It seems that the new meeting place of today is the cloud, which is characterized by instability since everything evaporates and thus loses consistency.
Ya que todo se volatiliza y por lo tanto pierde consistencia. This
lack of consistency may be one of the reasons for the loss of a consciousness of the importance of public life, which requires a minimum ability to transcend private interests, living longer and better, in order to build upon foundations that reveal that crucial dimension for our life, which is us. Without that consciousness, but especially without that feeling and consequently without that experience, it is very difficult to build a nation. As a result, the only thing that appears to be important and valid is what pertains to the individual, and all else becomes irrelevant. A culture of this sort has lost its memory, lost the bonds that support it and make its life possible. Without the us of a people, of a family, and of a nation, but also the us of the future, of our children, and of tomorrow. Without the us of a city that transcends me and is richer than individual interests, life will not only increasingly be fragmented, but also more conflictual and violent. The university in this context is challenged to generate within its own precincts new processes that can overcome every fragmentation of knowledge and stimulate a true universitas.
Y estimulen a una verdadera universitas. Avanzar en comunidad. De ahí el segundo
Hence,
elemento
the second key element for this house of studies, the ability to progress as a community. I was pleased to learn of the evangelizing outreach and the joyful vitality of your university chaplaincy, which is a sign of a young, lively church that goes forth.
Signo de una iglesia joven, viva y en salida.
The missions that take place each year in different parts of the country are an impressive and enriching reality. With these, you are able to broaden your outlook and encounter different situations that, along with regular events, keep you on the move. Missionaries are never equal to the mission. They learn to be sensitive to God's pace through their encounter with all sorts of people.
Del encuentro con tantos rostros o que no conocía o que no le son cotidianos o que le eran lejanos.
Such experiences cannot remain isolated from the life of the university. The classic methods of research are experiencing certain limits, more so when it is a question of a culture such as ours, which stimulates direct and immediate participation by all. Present-day culture demands new forms that are more inclusive of all those who make up social and hence educational realities. We see then the importance of broadening the concept of the educating community. The challenge for this community is not to isolate itself from modes of knowledge, or for that matter, to develop a body of knowledge with minimal concern about those for whom it is intended. It is vital that the acquisition of knowledge lead to an interplay between the university classroom and the wisdom of the peoples who make up this richly blessed land. That wisdom is full of intuitions and perceptions that cannot be overlooked when we think of Chile.
Tan enriquecedora entre el rigor científico e intuición popular.
An enriching synergy will thus come about between scientific rigor and popular insight. The close interplay of these two parts will prevent the divorce between reason and action, between thinking and feeling, between knowing and living, between profession and service. Knowledge must always sense that it is at the service of life and must confront it directly in order to keep progressing. Hence, the educational community cannot be reduced to classrooms and libraries, but must be continually challenged to participation. This dialogue can only take place on the basis of an episteme capable of thinking in the plural, that is, conscious of the interdisciplinary and interdependent nature of learning. In this sense, it is essential to show special care for indigenous communities and their cultural traditions. They are not merely one minority among others, but should be the principal dialogue partners, especially when large projects affecting the land are proposed. The educational community can enjoy an endless number of possibilities and potentialities if it allows itself to be enriched and challenged by all who are part of the educational enterprise. This requires an increased concern for quality and integration. The service that the university offers must always aim for quality and excellence in the service of national coexistence. In this way, we can say that the university becomes a laboratory for the future of the country, insofar as it succeeds in embodying the life and progress of the people and can overcome every antagonistic and elitist approach to learning. An ancient Kabbalistic tradition says that evil originates in the rift produced in the human being by eating from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Knowledge thus gained the upper hand over creation, subjecting it to its own designs and desires. This will always be a subtle temptation in every academic setting to reduce creation to certain interpretive models that deprive it of the very mystery that has moved whole generations to seek what is just, beautiful, and true. Whenever a professor, by virtue of his wisdom, becomes a teacher, he is then capable of awakening wonderment in students, wonderment at the world and at an entire universe waiting to be discovered. In our day, the mission entrusted to you is prophetic. You are challenged to generate processes that enlighten contemporary culture by proposing a renewed humanism that eschews every form of reductionism. This prophetic role demanded of us prompts us to seek out ever new spaces for dialogue rather than confrontation. Spaces of encounter rather than division, paths of friendly disagreement that allow for respectful differences between persons joined in a sincere effort to advance as a community toward a renewed national coexistence. If you ask for this, I have no doubt that the Holy Spirit will guide your steps so that this house will continue to bear fruit for the good of the Chilean people and for the glory of God. I thank you once again for this meeting, and I ask you to remember to pray for me.
Que no se olviden de rezar por mí. Muchas gracias.